I really love Star Wars. So if you're sitting there going, what the heck was up with that? Well, it's just because you just haven't got your fan on. Like, I'm one of those crazy fanboys who buys the costumes and the figurines and goes to the conventions and knows what Yoda says. But when it comes to the movies and the cartoons, Star Wars is pretty much up there for me, which is kind of cool because this term we've got the whole Star Wars or Ignite, use the Force as our theme to be teaching from. Well, that's our backdrop. But I was watching that clip, just as you were watching that clip, right? And I sort of realized that scene that we just saw right there marks the beginning of a friendship between the old guy, Obi-Wan Kenobi, between Luke, Han Solo, and Chewie. And this friendship between these guys ultimately shapes or totally transforms the Star Wars universe. And I was kind of thinking about, wow, when you look at that scene, sitting in that bar, haggling over finances to buy a ship, you don't actually really recognize that that's the beginning of an incredible friendship. And that's often the case, right? I was thinking about it. I was thinking about how often my friendships or how my friendships have started with my closest friends. And I don't know. I wonder if you can remember the first time you met your best friend. I wonder if you can remember the first time your best friend, where you were, who you were with, what you were doing, what you were wearing, what you were talking. How was it that you and your best friend met? How was it that you and your best friend came to be in a relationship with one another? When I was 6 years old, it's a long time ago, when I was 6 years old living in South Africa, I remember when I met my best childhood friend. I'd been at church in the morning, and our church had finished, and I was really keen to go home, but I was waiting on my mum, or as we call it in South Africa, my mom. I was waiting for my mom. And she had started talking to this new lady, her name was Debbie, and man, I don't know, sometimes my mum can really talk, and they were going on, and this lady had this son, Ian. And he and I were sort of just patiently waiting, hanging out, talking together while our mums talked, waiting to go home. And in that instant, I was like, man, this guy, not for me. We're not going to be friends. We have nothing in common. And it's kind of crazy, right? A 6-year-old, that's how old I was. And here I was judging this kid as being unworthy of my friendship, yet somehow, this is the thing, somehow Ian and I became best friends throughout our childhood. And this sort of got me thinking, what is it that we look for in our friends? Or, if you could choose your friends, what would you want them to be like? Or what would you want your friends to have? Or if our Facebook friends were really our actual friends, because let's face it, you've got a lot of friends on Facebook, but you don't know most of those people. So if your Facebook friends were actually your friends, who would you want on your list, and what would those people be like? Or let's go differently. If the world was one massive Twitterverse, if the world was Twitter and instead of friends we had followers, who would you want to be following you? If the world was Twitter and we didn't have friends, we all just had followers, who would you want to be following you? Why do we have friends? And what is it that we look for from our friends? And so I've been thinking about this, right? I've been thinking about why we have the friends that we have, why we choose the friends that we have. And what I've been thinking is that the reason we choose the friends we have is the same for each and every single person sitting here right now. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I kind of think I'm right on this one here. I think that when it comes to friends, that each and every single person sitting here is looking for the exact same thing in their friends. Every single person sitting here. You all, when you're looking at your friends, every single person in this room is looking for the exact same thing, it's totally crazy, right? Because for all the people sitting in this room, you're all different. Just look at the way you're dressed. You're all different. We've got boys and girls, we've got older people, younger people, we've got short people, we've got tall people. Everyone in this room is different, but when it comes to friends, when it comes to looking for friends, I think that all you guys are looking for the exact same thing. Every single person. I think every single person in the world, when they look for friends, is looking for the exact same thing. And the reality is, if you've got friends, then you probably know what you're looking for. If you've got friends, you probably know what the common thing is that unites us all. You see, when it comes to what we look for in our friends, you've got this answer, right? You all know the answer. When you're looking for friends, the thing you're really looking for in your friends is people that are like you. Think about it. Every single person here is looking for a person that is like them to be their friend. I mean, we're all looking for the same thing in our friendship, someone like us, but we have different social circles. And the reason you all have different social circles is because you're all different people. You're unique people. And so unique people find other unique people that have like the same social cliques. And you're kind of the same, so you form a social circle of friends. And then there's another group over there. And they're all looking for something that is people that are like them. And they form their own social circle over there. And so it goes on because you're all looking for the same thing. And that is people like you. So here it is. You're friends with your friends because your friends are just like you. Or they're so much like you that even though there might be slight differences, you're the same enough to still be friends. Have you guys got this? Let me prove that if you're looking for a friend, you're all looking for someone like you. Remember that friend Ian, the guy I met, best friend who we didn't have the great start, 6 years of age? Let me tell you that for our first meeting, that was a dud, right? 6 years old, after church, and I'm like, man, this guy not like me. And the reason I said he's not like me was because he was unco at sport. So for me, I was like, oh, I'm a sporty guy. My friends are sporty friends. We do sporty, outdoorsy things. I can't be friends with someone that doesn't like or know anything about sports. So you, me, not friends. A few weeks after that church service, the mums got together and they're like, well, let's do tea or coffee or whatever it is that ladies do, bake scones and stuff like that. So they got together, and as a 6-year-old, right, I don't have much choice about where I'm going or what I'm doing. I'm just like, well, I'll go, Mum. And I wasn't really happy about this, but when I got to Ian's place, everything changed. Like I rocked up at his place, 6 years of age, I saw Lego. It wasn't just any Lego. I saw like giant Lego castles. I saw giant pirate ships. I saw Viking ships, and I liked Lego. So we had Lego to play with. I rocked up to Ian's place, and what was really cool, he had Sega. I grew up in the 90s. I only had Nintendo. So that was like crazy. That was like hardcore cool. And then like Ian's house, we both lived by the beach. So we both went to the beach all the time. But he had one up on me. You see, when you don't want to swim at the beach, the even cooler place to swim is in a swimming pool. And he had a swimming pool. I didn't have a swimming pool. And his swimming pool was like this massive swimming pool with like this island in the middle. And so I was just like, man, he's got a cool swimming pool. And then check this out. His mum was really good at sewing. And so he had like these cowboy and Indian costumes. And he had like these ninja costumes. And we had like swords and toy guns. And I used to like building forts. And so we like just did all these things as kids. And then Ian, his family had Mnet. And that's like our Foxtel. And so we used to get together and we'd be watching this Mnet. And he just happened to like all the TV shows that I liked. And so all of a sudden, there's this guy, 6-year-olds. This guy I met who I was just like, psh, don't play sport, you're unco. That didn't matter anymore because between the two of us, we had so much in common that at the end of the day, we became friends, and not just friends, best friends. Why? Because he was like me. Why are you friends with your friends? Because they're just a little bit like you. So I wonder, how are your friends like you? Maybe it's the way they dress. Maybe it's the movies you watch. Maybe it's the TV shows you watch. Maybe it's the music you listen to. But I guarantee as you look at your friends, the reason you're friends is because they're just that little bit like you. Whatever it is, your friends, they're like you. So, make sure you got this. Here's our foundation. Every single person in this room, in fact, scrap that. Every single person in the world, you're looking for friendship, and what you're looking for is someone that's like you. And so this kind of got me thinking, right? If we're all looking for friends that are kind of like us, I sort of wonder then, is that the case for someone like Jesus? Jesus, he lived on this planet, and when it came to connecting with people, I wondered what kind of people he would choose to connect with, if he was exactly the same as us. And then I started remembering about the friends Jesus made. Now, I remembered that one day Jesus, he was out walking, and he was walking along by the Sea of Galilee. And as he's walking along by the sea, he sees these people, and they're out fishing. And Jesus just suddenly randomly, he yells out, he's like, hey, you guys over there. That's weird, right? I don't know about you guys, but when you go to the beach, you don't exactly yell out at strangers unless it's like shark. I mean, If there's a shark in the water, that's a good reason to scream out at people. But if you're just walking along, you don't tend to yell at strangers. But Jesus, he's walking along and he's like, hey, boys, over here, yeah, you guys, yeah, fish differently. Throw your nets on the other side. Now, I don't know what those fishermen must have been thinking, but for some reason, they listened. Because Jesus, he wasn't even a fisherman. So he's like, it's kind of arrogant, right? He's walking along, he's screaming at strangers, he's telling them how to fish. And the crazy thing is the strangers are like, oh, okay, we'll listen. And they caught fish. And then Jesus is like, okay, so I see you're businessmen. You own a fishing business. You own a trade. Well, guess what, guys? Now that you've caught a whole bunch of fish, why don't you come follow me? And so Jesus, he invites them to be his friend. And there's this another account, right? There's Jesus, and there's this other time. He's been on earth for quite some time. It's actually getting towards the end of his life. And he's talking to this crowd of people, probably double the size of the group of people sitting here. And in the crowd that Jesus is talking to there's women, there's children, there's close friends. In fact, in the crowd that Jesus is talking to, he's even got people that he's just been fighting with. He's got people that he's been having an argument with. He says, everyone, just come on, sit down. I want to talk to you. And here's Jesus. He's amongst his friends. He's amongst people he's arguing with, kids, women. He says, sit down. I want to talk to you. Guess what? If you want to save your life, I want you to think about that for a second. And it's almost like a redundant thing to say, kind of dumb. If you want to save your life, think about it. Everyone wants to save their life, right? I mean, think about it. When you go home tonight and you jump into your parents' car, what side of the road are they going to drive on? The left-hand side. Why aren't your parents driving on the right-hand side? Because the right-hand side's the wrong side to drive on. And because your parents don't want to lose their lives, they drive on the left-hand side of the road because that is the safe side of the road, generally speaking, to be driving on. Because at the end of the day, everyone wants to save their lives. And so Jesus says, whoever wants to save their life, which is like everyone who wants to save that, whoever wants to save their life should come and follow me. And he doesn't just stop and think, oh, by the way, I know I'm talking to this big crowd, but I actually only meant you two people. You guys, you follow me, everyone else, see you later, you're rejected. No, Jesus, he's there, right? There's this crowd, women, children, friends, people he's arguing with. He says, if you want to save your life, come be my mate. Come follow me. Come see what it means to be my friend. It doesn't matter that we've got a diverse crowd. Come hang out with me. In fact, if you really begin to look at the way Jesus lived, it didn't even really matter to him, or it didn't seem to faze him at all where his followers or where his friends came out. I mean, check this out. One day, Jesus is walking along. Kind of does a lot of walking, right? Probably because they didn't have cars. He's walking along and he comes across this tax collector. Now, when we hear tax collector, we sort of sit here going and we're like, what's the big deal with a tax collector? I mean, for Australians, you guys are too young to even pay tax, but if you ask your parents, hey, do you like paying tax? Most of your parents will be like, not so keen on paying tax. And the reason they're not keen on paying tax is they kind of feel as if they're having their money stolen away from them to go to someone else. But that's not exactly true. Because in Australia, when you pay tax, your money is really going to the government who builds schools, hospitals, pays for our defense, our roads, all things that we use. So when we pay our tax, we're kind of just paying to get stuff for ourselves in Australia. But 2,000 years ago, for the Jews living under Roman rule, the whole tax system was totally different. You see, the Jews, they'd been defeated by the Romans, and the Romans weren't exactly the nicest people to live under, so they used to rarely strongly enforce their law. So if you disobeyed, quite commonly you would be beaten, quite commonly you'd be imprisoned, and if you made like a minor mistake and you were a Jewish person, hey, maybe we'll just kill you. Whatever. We're the Romans, you're our subjects. And for the Romans, their tax system was basically based on the idea that you paid money in and that went to Caesar. And Caesar then basically did what he wanted with the taxes. And so what Caesar would do is he would organize for Jewish people to betray their people and to collect the finances. And so the Jewish men in the society, and they were men, would go around and they would collect finances off the other Jewish people. They'd be traitors. But here's the deal, right? The reality is Caesar didn't care how much they collected as long as he got what he wanted. So the excess, the leftover, the tax collector got to keep for themselves. And so what happened in this Jewish society is men would come along and they'd say, you owe me X amount of money to pay to Caesar. and only a little bit would be Caesar's. The rest of it would be making other Jewish people poor while they made themselves rich. And so tax collectors 2,000 years ago, they were essentially traders, they were con artists, and they stole from their own people. And here's Jesus. He's walking along. He comes up to this guy. His name's Levi. He says, "Hey, Levi, tax collector, come follow me. Let's be mates. Let's go eat together. Let's go hang out." And you got to sort of like think about this just a little bit. I mean, when it comes to Jesus, like, it seems totally crazy, but the thing is, whether he's talking to women, whether he's talking to children, whether he's talking to businessmen, traders, criminals, students, or a generic crowd of people, Jesus, unlike us, is not interested in what he can get from the people. You see, for Jesus, his heart, the reason he's interacting with people is ultimately so he can save them. Jesus wants us to follow him into eternal salvation. That's not about him. That's all about us. And so when we make friends, it's all about, well, what can I get from you? How are you most like me? How are you most likely going to make me happy? We're looking for ourselves. Jesus, I don't know. Maybe he's got a crazy split personality. Maybe he's just like totally warped, out there, divided, and that's how he can love so many people. Or maybe it's just that Jesus loves all people so much that he's willing to invite everyone. That's you, that's me, that's them sitting over there. Everyone, and maybe Jesus has that much love that he's basically going to say, you know what? Come follow me. Come be mates with me. It's an invitation. I mean, this is some kind of crazy love. And so I guess we've got to ask ourselves, what's stopping us from following Jesus? I mean, why wouldn't you want to follow Jesus to be your friend if all he wants to do is save you? I mean, why should you care about following Jesus? And why should you care about what Jesus says about life and how to live? I mean, after all, he's just some guy that wants to save you. And I think the answer, well, the reason why we struggle sometimes to follow Jesus is the same for each and every single person again. See, at the end of the day, if Jesus came to save us, the only reason or the only thing that would stop us from following him, the only thing that would stop us from being his friend is this little 3-letter word, sin. You see, it doesn't matter whether it's me or whether it's you. We don't like this idea that we are sinners. We don't like this idea that maybe I'm a bad person. In fact, no one likes to think that they're a bad person, but that's because you're comparing yourself to the wrong standard. You ever think about the standard you should compare yourself to? You see, when you compare yourself to God, when you compare yourself to God who created the earth and everything in it, when you compare yourself to God whose righteousness, whose love does not discriminate based on height, does not discriminate based on gender, does not discriminate based on wealth or what you do, when you compare yourself to God, this is God who doesn't do things just to make himself happy, but God who just loves us unconditionally. When you compare yourself to God, well, there's just no chance of coming off as being good in comparison to him. And God says, do you know what? I love you so much and I want to be in relationship with you. And what we tend to do is we go, do you know what? We're going to trade God. There's all of your goodness, God, but I'm not interested in your goodness, God. In fact, what I really want is my sin. And most of the time, we don't even know what we're trading. We don't even know what we're missing out on. We just make this decision because it seems like the easy decision. And so Jesus, right, he rocks up and he comes along and he says, do you know what? I know you. I know you. I know you. I know that you're a scumbag. I know that you're a tax collector. I know that you're just a fisherman. I know that you're a member in this crowd and you right now aren't seeing things eye to me. I know that right now you're really distracted. I know that right now you're really stressed out about this. I know you. I know the good things that you've done, and I know the bad things that you've done. And you know what? I know you, I love you, and I still want to know you more. Come, follow me. Come follow me because I know you, I love you, and I want you to have eternal life. It's an open invitation into friendship with the Almighty God of the universe. It's an invitation to anyone and everyone who's willing to respond. I remember when I was 8 years old, I remember one of the first times ever actually experiencing God's comfort. I remember when I was 13 years old, one of the first times ever experiencing God's direction over my life. I remember when I was 19 years old, God giving me a vision for what I'd be doing. I remember just a few weeks ago, God challenging me about areas in my life. See, the thing is, all night I've been saying to you, when it comes to making friends, when it comes to doing things that make you happy, you're doing things that are about yourself. You're looking at friends that are like you. But when it comes to God, when it comes to Jesus, he's different. He's actually just looking at you. He's looking at you right now. He's speaking to you right now. And it doesn't matter whether you're distracted or not, because he's in this room. He's all around us. He's going, I know you, I love you, and I want to be in relationship with you. Come, follow me. It's an open invitation. And he's in this place, and it doesn't matter whether you're in year 8, year 10, or whether you're one of the senior leaders here. God is always, always, always inviting us into a relationship with us. You see, he's speaking. And the real question is, are you willing to respond? Because so much of the time what happens is as you're going through life, you're distracted. 3-letter word, sin. Something that takes your eyes, something that takes your focus off God and his goodness, points you in this direction while he's over there. For each and every single person in this room, at different points in your life, in different ways, you're going to experience it. Something that's pulling you in this direction when God's saying, I'm over here. But despite the fact that God's over here, he's still speaking to us. He's still yelling out to us. I know there's people in this room and you're sitting here and something's stirring on the inside of you. It's like butterflies or something. For some of you, it's like tingles. For some of you, you're sitting here and you're thinking things for the first time. For other people, you're hearing things for the first time. I know this. And that's because each and every single person in this room has been invited into a friendship and invited to make a decision. It's a decision whether or not you want to respond to an invitation. You see, you have friends, and your friends are just like you. Jesus, he's also got friends. They're called followers of Christ. And when it comes to following Christ, at the end of the day, it's not about him. What he's really actually asking you guys is whether or not you want to be following him so he can save you. That's his desire. That's his heartbeat. Jesus invites people to follow him. You're a person, believe it or not. Jesus invites people to follow him, so how will you respond to Jesus' invitation to follow him? At the end of the day, for each guy or person that I mentioned in the stories where Jesus interacted with them, their lives changed in such a way that I can guarantee none of them would ever look back and trade it in. So Jesus is inviting you. He's calling you to in friendship. How will you respond? What does it mean for you today? Let's pray.